Right, you're listening to the Thunder Underground podcast. My name is Trent, and I am joined here by Jason Wood. What is up, my friend?
Not much. What do you know?
Not much. I know that this episode is completely about the grind.
That's
Not
right.
the grind, but grind.
Grind the grind. That's what we're doing on this one.
Right. And Grind is a band based out of Tulsa, Oklahoma. And we're going to also play you a couple songs here coming up. And then we're going to get into a good 45, 50-minute interview with CJ and Dell, guitarist and singer. And Dell also plays guitar as well. And I don't know, what do you think? I mean, what was the first time we saw these guys was a few months ago. We saw them opening for Scattered Hamlet.
That's right.
And what was your first impression seeing them live?
I was stoked. I mean, you never know what you're going to get, and I had heard this name a lot, and I was just really, I was floored. They sound good. Dale's got an insane voice with just some crazy power, just riffs, catchy stuff, kind of like, it was just, it was good all the way around, and I think they're a sound that kind of encapsulates the best things of, hard rock, and with the classic feel, with there's some real heavy tinges going on. So this is a great definition of hard rock all the way around.
Yeah, they combined a lot of different elements. We kind of get into that in the interview, and we were talking about that with them, when we weren't recording as well. That
yeah,
it's kind of hard to describe their sound outside of just saying they're a hard rock band.
Yeah, I wish some of that had, we'd hit record during some of that, because that was some good conversation, and it really kind of led to a really good talking about the definition of their sound. We were talking about, I thought it was, I said, okay, for example, you had, back in the day, you had the best of the hair bands and the best of the grunge bands coming and the best of the heavy bands coming. And not that I want to harken back to that time period, but to me, they just felt like they had that kind of mix going with, all the good styles coming together to form a cohesive thing. And to me, that's kind of what it was like. That's what it made me feel like.
Yeah, and this first track we're going to play for you is brand new. They've got it up on Reverb Nation now where you can check it out. And it's a great representation because it's got all that stuff going on. And it's called Mirrors, and it starts out with just a clean, twangy guitar, reminiscent of that stuff like I told you, it reminded me of like the intro to Bad Seamstress Blues by Cinderella.
Yeah.
That kind of sound, that bluesy hard rock, but also that, swampy country thing. And, and then once it kicks in, you've got this kick-ass hard rock song with great guitar work and, like you said, just awesome vocals throughout.
Definitely. It's just like what he said. They strive to be a clean, heavy band. And to me, that's perfect way to describe it.
Oh, yeah, definitely. Well, let's get right into this. This is a new song from Grind called Mirrors. Right, that was Mirrors from Grind. Brand new track. Find it on their Reverb Nation page. Search them. Just type in Grind. At least when I type it in, it's the first band that pops up. So
that's right. Get into this track. Its balls are swinging heavy on this one. So we know you're going to love it.
Yeah, and it's awesome. It gets stuck in your head. That's what you want. I think as a musician, you want people to be singing your song in their head after they hear it.
Oh, and, for sure.
You're walking around, singing "Mirror, Mirror on the Wall." It's just, it's a great, like I already said, just that great track that kind of blends all these styles together, and I dig the hell out of this.
Yeah, it's a great tune.
Well, they've also before they had these new songs, they had an EP out this past year, and it has 6 songs on it. You can find that as well on Reverb Nation. You can hit up on Facebook and buy one of these discs from them.
Which is what you should do.
Yeah, it's definitely worth your money. And definitely check them out live if you have the chance. This next song we're going to play is called Mr. Harvey. And we get into this a little bit in the interview, which Mr. Harvey is about Paul Harvey. And I'm not going to really give you all the details on that because Dale does a good job. But this is one I know jumped out to you the first time you heard it.
Yeah, because, like I said, when I first saw the title, Mr. Harvey, what I think of being from Oklahoma and, being from that era where I can still remember the tail end of Paul Harvey, that's the first thing I thought of. And then the song starts out with his voice, ends with his voice. And so I immediately just went right to it and paid attention and perked up a little bit more than usual. It was really cool. It was a really cool concept and a really cool message behind this song. And, listen to this song and you'll hear the story about it in the interview.
If I were the devil. I were the devil, I'd just keep right on doing what he's doing.
There you go, Mr. Harvey. You can find that song on Reverb Nation and find it on the EP, like we said. Great track. I mean, these guys are full of them. They've got at least 7-8 songs up now you can listen to, and we talked about that. They're looking into getting a full album's worth, but in the meantime, they're knocking out these songs here and there, and it's awesome to hear, a band from this era that has this sound. I can't remember if you said that on the podcast, or it was after we stopped recording, that Tulsa's ripe with a lot of great metal bands, but when it comes to just that great hard rock sound, there's some good ones, but there's a lot less of them.
Yeah.
So it's really cool, that this band's together and doing what they're doing. And
yeah, it's a great way to stand out. And we had fun chatting with them. We had a lot of fun, actually. And they're just a good bunch of guys that know a lot about rock and roll, and they love talking about it, and they live it just like we do. So, I mean, I had a blast, and looking forward to, hanging out with them again, seeing them live. So, and I think that comes through in this interview.
you can find our previous episodes if this is your first time listening. We're on SoundCloud, soundcloud.com/Thunder-Underground. We've got other great bands from this area like Driver and Dead Metal Society, Severmind, Rocket Science. The list goes on and on. We've also got a lot of, national acts like Crowbar and Warrant, The Obsessed, Miss May I. The list on that goes on and on.
Oh, yeah.
Pull it all up. We're at thethunderunderground.com. All the episodes are on there as well. We're always posting on Facebook and Instagram and Twitter. YouTube as well. We've actually got a YouTube video up from an episode we did several months ago with the singer from Battlecross. You can check that out on SoundCloud or on YouTube, which is pretty cool. And speaking of YouTube, Grind has some videos up, and I know you got, at least with the new song Mirrors, there's a kind of behind the scenes look at making that. And that's a really cool idea. I think more bands should do. So really dug watching that one.
Yeah, that was a fun one. Go look that up for sure.
Yeah, well, let's just quit talking and let's get into this interview with CJ and Dell from Grind.
Played Mirrors on the local thing a couple weeks ago, but
On the Cat.
Yeah, on the Cat. And then other than that, we haven't really done anything. We haven't tried to push anything.
Just kind of new.
During the holidays and everything, we haven't really tried to push anything.
But the Mirrors the response has been pretty good, and a lot of people were kind of surprised because the intro kind of starts out with
It's twangy.
Yeah, it's kind of, what we had in mind was like you're at the crossroads, you're going to talk to scratch, and that whole concept of the old blues Delta stuff, and really was kind of the genesis of that idea that Dale had been kicking around, and so that's when we started that song. Was really kind of the cornerstone of really where we wanted to go with that. But so people were a little surprised, and which is cool for us because you don't want to always do the same things, kind of keep them guessing a little bit, add a little dynamics to some of the stuff that we're doing. But that song, the reaction's been really good so far. Now, The Last Kiss, we haven't really played for anyone. The other one that we did recently in the studio was Maybe, which is a little kind of grittier, grungier kind of song, more in line with, I think, what people have kind of come to expect from us. So.
Yeah, because that's how I was. Because everything I knew was based off of when I saw you guys at Downtown's Lounge.
Yeah.
And it kind of gave me that, like you said, that kind of 90s feel.
Yeah.
The grunginess, but also just that hard rock, bluesy at times. But that Maybe thing just kind of shocked me whenever I mean Mirrors shocked me when it started playing, like I said.
That's cool.
And that's
really our roots, know? I mean, we both kind of came from backgrounds with a lot of the classic rock and the blues influences and the gospel and the country and all that stuff. So there's a little bit of all of that in there. It kind of goes from the the swampy blues, the Delta blues, to some Led Zeppelin-y kind of rip and riff kind of stuff. So there's a little bit of everything in there.
Yeah. I mean, for me, I thought it was like it's funny you say that because it's like this balls out, just it's soul, but it's like with the heavy behind it, and it's just like I don't know. I've said it a million times on here, like just going for the throat. I mean, it's like real just wet and soaked, but it's like I don't know. I don't know. Do I sound dumb?
No,
you know what I mean?
not at
but
all.
it's like tight and heavy at the same time.
It's a compliment. Thank you. Yeah.
It's just so talk about kind of how that comes together and where you got that from.
The key to the sound was when I first met CJ was I wanted a band that was so clean that we would be the heaviest, cleanest band you've ever heard. So when he joined the band, I was playing clean stuff at him, and he was just like, "Come on, dude." He's like, "Let's rip it," and I'm like, "All right." So I hit the fucking distortion pedal, and we started playing it dirty, and then we worked it out from there. But that was still the key, to be the cleanest, heaviest band you've heard, and that's what we worked on.
Yeah,
and that's what we still work on. That is our key to that. We're the cleanest, heaviest band you've heard.
That is a great way of putting it. That totally makes sense. That's awesome.
And that's what we strive for.
Yeah.
Simple, stupid.
Yeah.
You know? Kiss did it.
Kiss
made millions off of it.
Well, he's right. I mean, it was first time we jammed. It was acoustic kind of stuff, and it was like echoes of Marshall Tucker. And even in the stuff we play today, it's there.
Yeah, it's there.
Now the distortion's turned up, and maybe there's some bend squeals and all that kind of stuff. But that's at the heart of what it is. It's that kind of a classic rock and just gritty, in your face kind of rock stuff. Back when rock bands were rock bands and rock stars were rock stars. It's kind of the thing that appealed to us always. At least to me, those were my heroes.
Yeah, and that's,
I didn't want the packaged. This is what you're supposed to like, or everything's perfect, your makeup's just right, your hair, you got your chains and all your armbands just right. I like those sloppy, bigger than life rock stars of the 70 kind of thing. And I think those echoes are in a lot of what we do.
Yeah, definitely. You can hear it for sure.
Yeah, that's always been my favorite style. I mean, I love all kinds of rock and metal, but just straight up hard rock, where it's like you said, clean, but it's also dirty as well. Because your vocals, got a lot of attitude in them, but they're not.
Well, he's Godzilla.
Yeah.
Every time we go on stage, I'm like, Dale, go be Godzilla. That's gonna tear down Tokyo.
all right.
Hell yeah.
You have to, man. They eat you up if you don't.
Well, that's a good, at this point, that's a good time to bring up it's kind of the cliche question, but it's a fun one, is influences. Who's you guys' favorite, now or growing up or anything?
Man, I grew up playing music in church as a kid, but I remember my first time I fell in love with something. My stepdad played The Breeze by Leonard Skinner, and it just played over and over and over. And then he listened to Skinner, Marshall Tucker, the Allman Brothers, and those were my first love of music. And as I grew up, it was Guns N' Roses, Motley Crue, And I, like CJ said, I like the look, man. I like the sex, drugs, and rock and roll back in the day. I like the way it looked, The package was awesome. It was like, everything had parental advisory on it. It was awesome. Explicit lyrics. You don't get that shit no more. They don't even put it on the shelf,
Yeah.
But the whole package and the visual of it, the music was already there. And that was the biggest influence, Michael Jackson, James Brown, all that stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah. The simple. And that was what I was always into.
Right on.
For me, growing up, my parents were old hippies, but they listened to a lot of the old 60s rock, and then got into the a lot of Motown too from their childhood, and so that's what I heard was the old Motown, and then the Rod Stewarts and the Peter Framptons and Elton John. I mean, that's what I kind of cut my teeth on music. But for me, the first time I wanted to pick up an instrument was I caught a TV show one time, and this guy's playing a guitar like I'd never heard anything like it. It was Stevie Ray Vaughan on the Austin City Limits show, and he burned the place down. And I was like, I want to do that.
Yeah.
Whatever that is that he's doing, I want to do that.
Yeah.
But then it didn't take too long to start thinking, I want to do that, but I want it louder and a little more aggressive. And, that kind of led into getting into to Jimmy Page and Led Zeppelin and getting into Eddie Van Halen and what Van Halen was doing at the time in the late 80s, late 70s, early 80s. So that's kind of the core of what started, I think, for me, my path of the background and then where I wanted to go.
Elvis did it for me, man.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, how old were either of you when you first started playing? And started a band or joined a band or whatever?
My first time I showed any musical interest, I was probably 7 or 8, and they got me a drum set, and I was terrible. It was, I remember going to like this music store. We lived in Chicago at the time, and I took drum lessons. They had all these Kiss posters up on the wall and all that, and I kept thinking, an Ace, man, he just always he might not be the greatest guitar player in the world, but Ace is cool because he's Ace Frehley.
He was the highest one in
He's
the
just
band.
like, I don't care what you think, I'm Ace Frehley. So he just always stood out to me. But I remember taking them drum lessons and pretty quickly realizing it wasn't for me. I was terrible. And at some point, I'm still terrible. Even today, if I get behind the drums, it's pretty bad. But I think seriously started kind of getting into guitar around 13, maybe 14, and that kind of thing. I remember going to a friend's house, and he could play. He was probably terrible. But to me, he was awesome because no one I knew could play guitar like that. And he's playing, Ozzy Osbourne stuff and, Judas Priest stuff. And I'm going, this is the coolest thing I've ever heard, So probably around that time for me.
It always starts around that 13, 14-year-old.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's what happened for me.
You slow down just enough that
Yeah.
you can, focus on something for an hour or two at a time around that age, it seems.
Dude, the Guns N' Roses album, what was that, 88?
Appetite,
87. I was 14. And my family all sang and played, but that was the first time. When I heard Sweet Child of Mine on the radio, that was it.
Yeah.
That's when I picked up the guitar. That's when I picked it up. And that was it.
Dude, when that album hit, it was like, there's the whole LA thing going on, but when that one hit, you were like, oh shit.
Yeah, man.
It's
What is
nasty.
this?
Something,
I remember
something up.
Yeah, I remember being in high school, and there was always this one dude, and he always had a jam box. You remember the box that everyone carried around?
Yeah.
And that album would just be playing while everyone's just sitting outside on a lunch break time or whatever we had, but recess, whatever it's called. But
Smoking hole.
that album was my high school life. It was cool. Other than the Metallica Black.
Yeah. I don't know. For me, that's awesome. That's like it too. So
Yeah, that one
that's
came out
my
like 2 years later.
Yeah.
Yeah.
that could start a whole debate,
Right?
a whole other episode.
I know, right? That's a whole other can of worms.
Yeah, that's my favorite album ever.
Really?
Yeah.
Black?
Appetite.
Oh, Appetite.
Oh,
It's a brilliant album, man.
It's
Every
crazy
song.
how
Yeah.
It's not a bad song.
and I think they've played every song on the radio like more than once in regular rotation, which that doesn't ever happen.
I'd like to hear Rocket Queen more.
Yeah, true.
We've heard Welcome to the Jungle.
Enough.
Yeah.
And we're gonna hear it again too, I guess.
Well, what was the first band you were a part of, or how old were you?
First real band I was ever in was a metal band. It was called Euthanasia. And I was 17. We were together for a few years. We played nothing but Metallica and Megadeth and Slayer songs. And it was fun. We had skinny jeans on and long hair. And it was fun. No one ever came to see us, but it was a good time.
Hey, as long as it was fun.
But-
Was it before Megadeth's Euthanasia?
Yes, it
album?
was. We spelled it with
That's
the E.
awesome. Yes.
We spelled it with an E. Yes.
Pioneers.
Yeah, it was terrible, I'm sure. I remember playing in the band, but I bet it was terrible to watch.
Yeah.
But it was a good time, man. It was a good time.
Those early bands are fun, you know, because you're just figuring it out and everyone's excited about, we get to make noise,
That's
you
right.
know, and we can actually play, you know, the song. And
We'll play a yard sale for free.
yeah. The band I first started in, it was probably, I don't know, maybe 15, 16, and it was a lot of playing just house parties, or like on the weekends, people would get together and hang out, and, you know, we would basically jam, but it'd be practice is all it was, and just play. Same thing, a bunch of cover stuff.
What was the name of your
Kiss
band?
songs. Well, the first one, I think it was called Rage. That's an awesome name, right?
Rage?
Rage! Yeah, but it totally was, nowadays it sounds like it'd be kind of like a metal band, but it was totally cheeseball stuff, but, yeah, it was good times back then, though. Everything was just exciting.
Yeah. It was all new and, yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
That's funny.
Rage.
So when you got here, was the first band you were in Searching Sanity?
Uh-uh.
Or,
No, I know those guys, but no, I've not ever played
oh, I
with
thought you were in that band. Sorry.
No, I was out of
Way
music.
to do your homework.
Yeah, that's cool. They're cool guys.
I don't know why I thought that. I was.
I was out of music for like 18 years. We were moving around the country and you know raising a family, that kind of stuff, and just kind of took a break for a while. And when I got back in a couple of years ago, I actually answered an ad for a band that turned out to be Benny's Little Weasel. You guys know those
Okay, I've
guys?
heard that name,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool local band, and just kind of, I wanted to play live like one more time, just to knock the rust off, see if I could do it again. And so that was the band that actually kind of got me back into playing. And then once I got into it, just kind of got excited about doing it again, and kind of rekindled, you know, those sparks. And it's been a ride ever since. So, and then Dale and I started talking about putting together a rock band.
Yeah.
So how did that come about? Like,
Well, we knew we had seen each other in town. I mean, it's not, the bands crossed paths in town. He was in Old Man, I was in Benny's, and he could tell you a story about the first time he saw me play. He's like, "Who's that bald guy up there?" You know. But we just kind of crossed paths and you know, kind of being friendly, kind of hanging out a little bit, and then we both landed at Rocklahoma, 2014 or 13. I guess it was 14.
Yeah, it'd be 14.
And ended up having campsites right next to each other. We were playing at the Axis stage and hung out all weekend, and really kind of became friends that weekend, and saw that we had a lot of the same common interest, and talking about Fleetwood Mac and Marshall Tucker, and it's like that was kind of the birth of what grind came to be.
Yeah.
Really started that weekend.
Cool.
I should have been prepared with something.
Oh, yeah, we got our notes.
Yeah. So when you guys got together, and like, did either of you already have music and you know, like songs prepared or anything?
Yeah.
For other projects, or just for yourself, or did you just start writing together? That kind of thing?
I had some songs that I'd been sitting on for a while, and it was never the right pairing of people in the same room to make the right sound. And so I'd had some material I was sitting on, and when these guys walked in the room, it was there. It was there. So writing the new stuff that I was wanting to write, and then what they brought in, it was just easy. So, but yeah, I had already had an idea of how I wanted us to sound, and when they walked in the room, they're like, "That's how we're supposed to sound," you know, and they just jumped on it, and that's it. I mean, we can't be a sound without. It takes all of us. So, and that's the cool thing about this band. Nobody's fighting for a sound. It just happens, man. There's magic there. It's weird. It's hard to find, but it happened.
And we'd reached a point with Benny's where it was time to start writing, and I had a lot of stuff I wanted to do writing wise, and it just, you know, sometimes you're working too hard to make it work, and it just wasn't right for their sound. And so, you know, when Dale and I got together, he had some of that stuff kind of queued up. I had some ideas queued up. So it happened pretty fast, where we had a lot of material to work through pretty quickly. And then we got to where we started writing together. A couple of the Freak Show was actually the first song that we wrote, co-wrote together, and then Mr. Harvey was the next one. So pretty early on, we saw that the writing was going to go pretty easy. I mean, it was really effortlessly. Hey, I got a riff. What you got? You got an idea?
And being full of shit doesn't hurt.
So it was cool.
Well, now that you're a couple years into it, is that how you guys do everything? Just write together, or is it still just bringing ideas together?
We Last Kiss. We were talking about that earlier. That was one of the songs I had been sitting on for a long time, and I brought it in, and the guys killed it. But Mirrors and Maybe is new stuff, and it went exactly that way. But Mirrors was a different song. It was fucking weird.
It was one of them times that I'm just jamming a riff and everybody's like, "What is that? Why are we playing that song?"
Yeah, it kind of became its own thing. We just kind of chased it and went with it. But normally, CJ comes in with a riff, or I come in with a riff, and we just sit there and hammer it out till it's right before we even bring it to the band. But these last two, they've just kind of like grew heads of their own and wrote themselves. It's been kind of nice.
I think early on we kind of had everything kind of written structure-wise. And then when Jerry and Brian came in, they kind of helped round it out. And Brian changes. Like, I may think a riff's going to go a certain way in cadence, but when his drum style is so unique, a lot of times it'll change. It'll drive that riff to kind of, accent different parts. So
yeah,
he's a big part of the final product and the sound. And then JD's got, a real groove bottom end that really rounds everything out. There's not any holes there. So the first couple songs and early on, we really kind of went to them with a structure. The last couple things we've kind of done just in the jam room. And it's a completely different experience. In some ways, one's easier than the other. One's easier to get through. It's more efficient for me because I like to come with something ready rather than wade through all the mess of, the creation of 4 people going different directions. But we got some cool products out of doing that. So I think as we go forward, we're actually talking about getting together this weekend and working on the next round. We'll probably do a blend of the two approaches.
Okay. Well, talk about Mr. Harvey, because I thought that was a great song, and when I saw the title, I immediately thought of Paul Harvey, and then it starts out with ends with those sound bites. I always loved those when I was a kid. I loved hearing his voice. So just talk about that. How'd that come about? Because I dug that one.
Somebody messaged me that on Facebook, that little sound bite, that Paul Harvey clip of the when he did that in '65. And I listened to it, and when I heard it the first time, dude, it literally took my breath away.
Yeah.
And I was just like, holy shit balls. And I just listened to it and listened to it and listened to it and listened to it. And I was just like, holy crap. And I came to him about it, and he was just like, man, I don't know about a concept song. And I was just like, dude, I can't.
It's like our second song.
I'm like, I cannot get this out of my I can't get this out of my head.
It's kind of ambitious for song 2, but
but the way I approached it was that I believe that back in the day, people who told the truth were called prophets. Mr. Harvey was so. Mm-hmm. I believe that story needs to be rolled over and done again. And I was just trying to prolong the truth for Mr. Harvey because I was blown away by it. It just inspired me, and I thought it was beautiful. And
if people have never heard the whole broadcast, look it up, man. Paul Harvey, If I Was the Devil. And
if you listen
he predicts
to
what we're living right now is freaky.
Yeah.
It is a trip.
See, I don't know.
Back in the
'60s.
Yeah.
Oh,
really?
yeah. He's talking about metal detectors in schools and drug-sniffing dogs going through our hallways in our schools. How would he know that in 1960s? It's pretty wild.
Yeah.
First time he played it for me, I had the same reaction. I was like, oh, man, that's crazy.
It's confusing at first because you're like, what? But then when you listen to it, I'm like, this is in '65.
Yeah. He's saying this is...
Yeah.
And his whole premise is, if I was the devil, I wouldn't change anything because it's all working.
it's just
the
gonna,
world is going.
Yeah, it's going to
into
unravel
his hands.
itself.
That's the whole concept of his piece.
Wow.
And that's, if you listen to the lyrics of the song, that's what the song's about. Is look what we're doing. You know.
That's
You
awesome.
should check that out.
Yeah.
Mr. Harvey was right.
Yeah. He usually was. He really
Yeah.
was.
Well, you said you guys are looking to go in this weekend to start writing some more. When you guys get more songs together, you plan to just keep kind of doing like this, one or two at a time, or are you looking into a full album at all?
I want to do an album.
Okay.
I want to do a full album. But it's weird nowadays that you got so much social media and you got so many outlets to get music, like singles at a time.
Right.
And no one cares a rat's ass about an album anymore. But I want to do a fucking album.
I hear you.
You know, I want to do an album.
Yeah.
And I actually want to put one on a fucking record. But I want to do an album, and I think that the whole concept of the album thing is going to be it's a lost art, and it's going to be one. And I want to be a part of one before it's over.
And I think that's cool. I'd like to do that as we go as well. And we may roll some of these songs into a finished product like that, but we're in such a I want it now type of a demand of society to stay relevant, particularly as a unknown, local band trying to kind of get bigger.
Yeah.
You can't afford to not have anything new to offer people in a year.
You got to drop a single.
It
here.
has
You gotta
kind of
drop
been a
single here.
strategy, and really the record producer, record engineer we work with really kind of gave me this insight of if you're putting out new stuff, whether it's new videos, new music, new content every couple months, it kind of keeps things fresh for people. Rather than, hey, I'm gonna wait 9-10 months, you're not gonna hear anything new. It's
10
gonna
new
be the
bands
same
have already
crap
moved
you've been
in.
listening to.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you've got stuff like the YouTube video, and there's always, you've got Reverb Nation, but I like what you're saying about you want to do an album, and you should, because that's what you want to do, and that will ultimately work out the best, I think, because that's what you really want to do.
It's a dying art, man.
Yeah, it is.
Well, it's weird because it's going to appeal to people our age, but if you want
Yeah.
that youth, you've got to have, like you said, singles all the time, so they'll pay attention.
Yeah, and it's terrible. Like my daughter, I mean, she's 10, and she's always about getting iTunes cards, and she's buying songs, games and songs. And I'm like, really? One song?
Oh, when I was a kid, I couldn't live with myself if I just bought one song. I wanted the whole thing.
You could.
Yeah.
You could get maybe a cassette or two.
Yeah.
Or
Cassette
45,
single.
And you had to listen to the whole damn thing just for your son.
Yeah, well, it's like I remember a kid, like we were going back to the Black Album. This kid was like, he one of Brandon Booth's friends, or he just skipped around to the singles. Mm-hmm. And he didn't listen to anything else. I'm like, what are you doing? The non-single songs are the best fucking songs in the album, but
Right?
and I just couldn't. I don't know. I couldn't handle that if I was, Yeah, it's crazy.
Well, back in the day, we all had to make our own little iPod mixtapes,
Yeah,
with,
and we did. Yeah,
get to punch out the cassette so you could record on it, and
The little tab.
Yeah.
No, you had to fill them up with paper.
Oh, yeah,
if
you
they
gotta
were
put
punched
paper
out.
on,
Yeah.
Yeah,
Man, that was the
mine,
struggle.
tape over.
Yeah, that was the thing.
Yeah,
You had to
man.
fill them up because they were punched out already.
That's right.
That shit was funny.
And then what we get those clear ones, and you could unscrew them. If you were real careful, you could unscrew it, take the insert out, and then put like a custom insert in it, and screw the cassette back down. Be like, look, we do like our band demos that way. Cheesy as hell.
My parents got me a radio for Christmas one year, and it had a microphone,
Yeah.
and it had the cassette and then the record.
Yeah.
So I figured out how to play and turn the microphone on and loop it
Yeah.
and record. So I was playing and
yeah?
singing on top of it. I was making mixtapes for the girls.
Yes.
It was terrible though.
If you ever find one of those, I want to hear it.
I hope they all got smashed.
You can start a Reverb Nation
Oh,
page for your
we'll
just
do a
your
whole
own-
video of that
just
kind of
Dell's
shit.
love songs.
Oh my goodness, the worst ever written.
I've got some of those old demos from when I was 16 and stuff, and every once in a while I'll listen to them and just laugh. Be like, this is the greatest stuff.
Man, one of the first songs I've ever written. This is funny. One of the first songs I've ever written, I recorded on a guitar. with this machine we're talking about that I made.
Yeah.
And I gave it to my grandma. And just recently,
The Delafier.
it was given back to me, that tape.
Oh yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, and I'm like, I'm mortified. I don't want to hear it. My grandma's passed since, but she saved it.
That's awesome.
But it was given back to me, and I'm like, I'm not even going to listen to it. I'm going to keep it because it's awesome. My grandma was like, that's great. That's great, baby.
Yeah.
One day you'll have to break it out and listen.
Yeah, she would have hit it with a hammer like I was.
Yes.
Well, the other day at the Vanguard, you mentioned you guys were looking into playing more out of town.
Yeah.
Have you guys done that much leading up to now?
This last year we hit a couple of surrounding states. Went to Missouri, went to Texas, Arkansas. We're trying, we're still relatively new.
Right.
So we're still building a network in terms of fellow bands in other regions and working with promoters in other regions, and we've got some things set up this year.
Yeah. We're
Some
going
of
to be
them-
busy this year.
Yeah. We really want to try to play Tulsa. I mean, I don't know if we'll get away with it, but 3 or 4 times this year. And like last year we played a lot. But you kind of got to get known as kind of breaking out and kind of letting people know what you're going to be about. And this year I think we're going to try to go the opposite of play far less in town if we can. And we've turned down some good shows so far this year.
Yeah.
I'm not going to mention which ones, but some friends of ours and some promoters in town that would have been shows we would have jumped on last year, but we really want to make the shows that we do special. We want them to be events, and we want people to come out and just wait for that show rather than, hell, I saw them 2 weeks ago, or
Yeah. Or I'll see them
I
next time.
see them.
Yeah.
They're playing 3 weeks from now. I'll see them then. And it's a lot to ask people to come out all the time like that. So traveling, I think, will allow us to continue to play live without playing here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, what kind of practice schedule do you guys have? You guys practice a lot? Or if you have like a gig coming up, do you up it a little bit? Or
Well,
we used to practice a lot.
yeah.
But, these guys can play these songs standing on their head in their sleep. So, since we're at where we are, we're actually on a break at the moment, and we're going to go back to work like we talked about. This week we're about to go back to work. So rehearsal is going to probably gear back up, once a week, hopefully maybe twice a week if we can get it. But
We're doing that for a while.
because come springtime, it's time to hit the road.
yeah.
We went, you play so much, you get to where, you just taking a break from playing those songs actually is good. It may not sound like that, but then if you take a couple weeks off from playing them, you come back to them, they're fresh. Whereas if you're playing them several times a week at practice, and then you're playing a show every week or several shows a week, you kind of get into like it almost becomes autopilot. At least for me, I don't know what Dale goes through, but I kind of just
I'm
get
in
into
pain. when
I
we do
just
that
get it.
shit.
It almost becomes like I'm not even thinking about what I'm doing, And on one hand, that's cool, but on the other hand, when we take time off when we play them again, we're like, hell yeah, that sounded badass. I like that too. So then we focused on those 3 new songs in the studio, and that was right at the end of the year, and we're getting ready to go back. We could have write a couple more and probably be back in the studio this spring.
Okay. Right on. That's cool.
Do you have gigs lined up?
Yeah,
town
our
right
next
now?
show. Well, our next show that we have in town that I'll mention is April 9th. We're playing over at Billy and Renee's, their new place.
Okay.
You guys been over there yet?
No, we're going
Yeah.
Saturday to the.
It's pretty cool. They did a good job with it. We've got Skytown's going to play with us. Some of our buds and one of our favorite bands play with in town. And Red Witch Johnny. You guys heard of them?
I've heard the name.
Yeah.
Gritty rock band.
Good rock band.
We're trying to get them out as much as we can and play with us and let people hear them because they're really cool. And probably one other band. We haven't decided on what band, but April 9th will be that date. So,
What since we're on that one, what do you think of the Tulsa scene? Especially since you've been here 5 years.
mm-hmm.
I know from way back, and then just now. I mean, what are your thoughts on it now, and just as coming from outside?
Well, when I left Little Rock, I may be a little bit older than you guys. I don't know. I'm not tell how old.
You're a lot older than me.
I left Little Rock in the late '80s and went to LA. I was gonna go be the Hollywood rock star like a lot of other people, and there were a whole lot of other people out there.
Yeah.
And everyone was starving, and it was fun, but so seeing that scene was kind of cool, because you saw it on TV and all that stuff. And so in my mind, that's why I always try to compare the experience and the camaraderie that I saw with those bands. And I think we've got a very healthy scene here. From my opinion, there are some very talented musicians, and there's some very good bands. And we see that, like when we travel, we go to Kansas City, or we go to Fort Smith, or we go somewhere else, and you get paired with some of the other bands. Sometimes you're playing with some guys that are really good, great bands, great followings. But then you see the wide spectrum of what's out there. And I would say the venues here and a lot of the promoters here do a really good job of putting shows together that are pretty solid. Mm-hmm. It's rare do I go to a show and go, wow, I don't know why they had that band on the bill in Tulsa. But sometimes I go to other regions, you may see that. So I think it's been pretty good. And I think there's always opportunities to get stronger and get better. But there's a lot of things you'd like to see better in terms of like the bands, like coming out and supporting each other a little more, or working together instead of just, hey, I'm going to focus on my thing and not worry about anybody else. Sometimes that doesn't do a lot for the entire scene across the board. If everyone has that attitude, then we're in it. Not a lot of us going to run out here and be big time rock stars. So we can make the scene a cool place and make this a place that everyone enjoys playing.
Yes.
And Eddie Van Halen's
Oh
Paul.
man, look, it's Jesus Fingers. That's our record engineer. Sorry,
You guys know Paul?
Paul Odom.
I don't think so.
He owns Church Bigfoot Studios.
Oh, okay, yeah.
That's where we record.
Kyle Williams was.
Yeah, Kyle.
Yeah, Smoke Offering over there.
Yeah.
Forever and Discuss.
Right.
Recorded there.
Right on.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah, their new stuff's pretty good.
Yeah.
They just recorded over there. It's really good.
Really? Right on.
So.
Well, what are some bands? I mean, obviously you might not want to say because you don't want to leave someone out, but what are bands around here that you guys are digging? Besides ones you've already mentioned, like Red Witch and... That means no one.
I'm looking at
I'm just fucking around. No, man. There's
We're
some
not
good.
editing any of
No.
this.
There's some really good. No, there's some really good bands, man. I tell you what. I like some of the Tulsa. You were talking about the scene. Tulsa's got a lot of everything, and Tulsa's a party town. Like it or not, it is.
Yeah.
And there's a little bit of everything, man. What is Charlie? Full Flavor Kings. Have you ever seen the Full Flavor Kings play?
Yes.
Yeah.
Played
I
with them
love the Kings.
a long time ago.
Yeah, man, they're still doing that.
Yeah.
Who else, man?
Well, I mentioned Skytown. It's a band that we
Skytown's
kind of hooked
bomb.
up with, and
well, I'm just trying to think about Tulsa's in bed. Like, have you ever seen Tommy Crook play? I don't
know
want
that
to be
name, though.
sticking my foot in my mouth, but he used to play at Atlanta Tie on 71st Memorial.
Oh wow.
And he plays a big hollow body, and he just Chet Atkins style, and he's pretty badass.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So Tulsa's got like from that, to Full Flavor Kings to Skytown to we got hip hop. We're friends with the guy who owns Mugen Production and Music, and he's trying to bring hip hop back. Not that it ever died, just for Tulsa. Mm-hmm. So Tulsa has it all.
Yeah.
And whether we like it or not, Tulsa is a city now, and it's not Tulsa T-Town no more. It's Tulsa City, and it's big, and there's a lot of people here. So there's a lot of people to touch, and there's a lot of music to be made, and we just got to find a way to fucking get it to all of them.
And you got some great bands that are just local. You got players that do stuff, on a bigger scale.
When did you play for Searching for Sanity? I'm trying to figure this out.
I snuck that in on you. But you also I'm
gonna call Charlie.
You've got these like open jams that are starting to gain momentum in town. Like the Nitro's doing one right now that a lot of guys are going to, and man, they got some players, man, that are they're tearing it up, and it's cool to see. But that's what we need is people go see this stuff. Yeah. We got to get people excited and give them a reason to come out, and that's kind of the $1 million question of how do you consistently get folks to do that.
Well, I'll wear my scarf.
The scarf,
and that should do it.
Yeah.
Hey, we had a feather boa back in the day,
right?
A pink one. I didn't wear it though. But anyways,
heck yeah,
whatever it takes, just like you said. Mm-hmm. But I what you're saying there is like getting people out and then going back to kind of what you said earlier. Not oversaturating. In a way, less is more. So I like the strategy of maybe scaling back. What you're playing in Tulsa, make it more of a thing.
Well, it's not even just about us. So I'll give you an example. You want to know how to make this really cool? Now, bands ain't going to do this, so all you other bands can quit listening. But if I was king of the Tulsa music scene, I know, I'm calling you out. You know what? Let's have like an event. So like every 4 to 6 weeks, there's a hard rock event. You know what I'm saying? Right now, if we play a show, there may be 2 or 3 other hard rock things going across town. That doesn't help anyone.
Yeah, man.
Bands got to work together. Promoters got to be smart. Okay, so this promoter over here's got hip hop going. This band over here's got freak juice going, and then this venue over here's got, a hard rock metal, show.
Community, man.
You build this community, but that takes work. That takes somebody like working with all these partners and coordinating all these things and getting these bands on board. If we could do something like that, you could start bringing out several hundred people to a show. But the way it is now, man, you're fighting over scraps because 50 people are here and 30 people are over here and 15 people over here. And
there's 5 people over there hating everybody everywhere else.
Yeah. And the rest of the people are outside, whatever. But that's a vision, And when I was in LA, that's the kind of stuff would happen. Really? Is it would be like big shows, and then it would be weeks before another big show. I mean, they had LA's a big town, so they had other things going on. But the main places, that's what they were doing. Seattle, that's what was going on back then when Mother Love Bone was tearing it up and those bands were coming up. They'd have these big events and they'd load a bill and then it'd be weeks before another one would happen. Yeah. And people would come out. Tulsa needs to do that.
You can do it, man.
You
need to head it up.
You guys remember the shows at Mohawk?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Man, what?
Yeah.
How badass would that be?
Like the Edge Fest and all that
kind
of stuff.
Stuff?
We went to a ton of them.
Yeah.
They used to have shows there all the time, dude, book shows there.
You remember, the floating amphitheater on the river?
Oh, yeah.
Dude, they sold that for like $500.
I know. And it's crazy. I saw so many shows there.
I saw Korn there, dude, and they fucking burned the place down.
You saw, who'd you see?
Opening
Korn?
for Megadeth?
Yeah.
Yeah, we were at that. I was about to say.
Is that when Fear Factor got in a fight with security?
And I was just about to say, that's when all the idiots jumped in the... And we're like swimming towards Megadeth.
Megadeth's like, I'm not going to play if you keep throwing stuff at me.
We were there. Well, and Dave Mustaine had to send the drummer out. All right, guys, you guys need to cool out and all this stuff.
So good.
So many awesome shows, and the thing sold for $500.
$500.
I know.
Well, I'd read the reason it sold for so low was because whoever bought it was going to have to pay several thousands of dollars.
Is it still sitting there? Yeah, I saw that too.
Is.
It's probably still sitting there.
Funny.
So
you guys gonna go see Lamb of God?
Planning on it.
Yeah, we're planning on it. Yeah.
I was wanting to go to Anthrax.
Got my tickets.
Yes.
Woo!
See,
Maybe you should get a room.
Arkansas, but I think it's sold out.
You gonna take off the next day?
Yeah, if we get a room.
We're going.
Separate rooms.
Whatever, dude. I'm gonna hump you.
It's a weeknight, so that makes it rough.
It's on a Tuesday.
Yeah.
I believe it was on a Tuesday, Phil.
Yeah.
I got that. That's awesome.
So, now I'm asking the questions. Who's you guys' radio influences?
Radio influences?
Yeah. This is why you guys do this, right?
What got you into this?
No,
Well,
it's more just I actually went to school for broadcast journalism, but I've never done anything with it.
Oh.
Yeah?
Like I work in graphic design and printing.
Really?
You know, it's just always been something I wanted to do.
Yeah.
And this is more just a thing of, you know, we've been friends since we were kids and we're music geeks and we just talk about it all the time.
Yeah.
In the past couple of years, we just kept saying, hey, we need to start a podcast.
Well, you know, ever since we were, I mean, we've known each other since we were elementary school, but since, you know, when you get to that 13, 14 and you start listening to music, we've been hardcore music geeks, metal kids, whatever. And what was it, like 20 years ago, we did like a little fanzine thing that you just go drop off at Starship.
Yeah.
You know, ourselves, and, you know, do it on a computer and run copies of it and just do little record reviews or whatever.
And we actually do you remember Elwood?
Yeah.
From KMID?
Yeah.
Yeah, we interviewed him for our fans.
Forgot all about that. Jesus. We
That's,
did,
I
yeah.
think, the only interview we ever did.
Yeah, and then so, but then you know, stuff happens, and he went to college, and I played out in Tulsa for a few years with a band, and then that ended, and then, you know, work and jobs and kids and whatever. But this last couple of years, we thought, let's, you know, look at, you know, doing a website or whatever, and we were like, we need, you know, we're always listening to the Eddie Trunk podcast and the Jamie Josta show and all that. Right, we could do this. We could do this. We could get like Tulsa bands, or we could just talk about shit. And we're just like thinking, yeah, we'll do this. Well, lo and behold, this motherfucker one day, oh, I bought a microphone, so
We're doing it.
yeah, we're doing it. So
That's
we've
cool.
done 40 of them so far. So
I've caught quite a few of them.
Yeah, I joined your page this week. I haven't got the chance to listen, but man, you guys got a good following. That's cool.
yeah, I hope it keeps growing. I'm glad we've gotten what we've gotten, you know, and it's really cool. I never thought I'd get to sit in a fucking tour bus with Kirk Winstein. I couldn't fucking believe it, you know, but.
So how you guys get that? How does that happen? You just walk up and say, hey man, we're doing a podcast.
This is the
Hook us
guy,
up.
really. This is the guy.
Search out people's press contacts and
Oh, yeah,
email
yeah,
anyone
yeah.
that's in the area, and you know, most of them don't reply, but every once in a while, someone replies and says sure.
Yeah, I mean,
It's
I've
that
seen
simple.
you guys
Yeah.
have done some really cool ones.
And as soon as you got 2 or 3 of them, then you can say, "Hey, we did this and
You
this."
got some
and
cred then.
It's easier.
Yeah.
Well, then
Yeah.
you guys, I saw the Metal Edge thing picked you up on
Yeah.
was it the Warrant one?
Yeah.
Crowbar. I
And
saw the Crowbar
Warren
one.
and Crowbar.
And
Yeah.
And Sid Falk from Overkill.
Now, that was one,
I
probably
know
the first
Sid.
one I heard was because I'm like, it was pretty long, right?
Yeah.
Was it a 2-part thing?
Yeah.
So I'm like, I want to listen to this. Yeah.
Great guy. And it was amazing to have him sit right there.
Yeah,
and
I
we're
wanted to
just
hear
like,
it. Yeah, so.
You know, but the guy can talk. You know, he loves to talk, and it was awesome. But the thing is with social media and different outlets nowadays, these guys that probably wouldn't 20 years ago are more than happy to talk to just a local podcast.
Yeah, yeah.
So that's where we kind of got lucky on that deal.
And then I saw you guys did one with Scatter Hamlet. That was probably the night we played with
Yeah.
them.
Yeah,
That
it was.
day.
Yeah.
Man, those guys were fun.
Oh, they all 5 did it, and they're all really cool, and it was a fun one. Yeah.
We had a fun night that night.
That was a
and
good
then,
time.
You
That was
know,
a good
after the
show.
show, everybody hung out.
Yeah.
And good guys, man. I mean,
Except that band that jumped in their bus and took off, right? I remember Adam called him out on
Yeah,
stage,
he did.
but
Yeah, he did.
Who was that?
that Prophets of Addiction.
they jumped in their bus?
Oh,
Like as soon as they finished, they packed
Oh,
up.
They
yeah.
had a
Oh,
real
I got
kind
you,
of
I got
hair
you, I
band
got you.
kind of thing.
Well, that guy used to play, he was in Pre-Boy Floyd for a minute. That's what he
What?
told me.
Oh,
And I
really?
was like, well, let me tell you. I said, I was at they said, you don't know this, but I was at the Roxy at the Pretty Boy Floyd CD release party. I said, you were not there.
He was in the band. In
He was
2001.
like in
Yeah.
a later iteration.
Yeah.
So,
Prophets of Addiction.
yeah, they did. They split pretty quick.
Well, I looked it up, and they were playing Denver at
Yeah.
like 3 the next afternoon. So I
Yeah.
guess they probably just
Cut 'em
drove
some
on
slack,
out.
man.
Yeah.
I mean, and you know what? That's real rock and roll, man. And it's pretty eye opening that they're going town to town trying to scratch out. Hey, will you please buy a CD so we got some gas money? which the guy said on stage. You guys remember that?
Yeah.
They were basically, I mean, almost like begging the 15 people that were there, the 20 people that were there.
I bought
early.
one, dude.
They were like, would you guys please be sure to help us out, buy some stuff?
I bought
it's pretty sobering, man.
Yeah.
I bought a T-shirt and gave it away.
They were pretty cool dudes, though. I mean,
I support them, dude. I know.
Bit.
Yeah, I supported them, but I bought it and then someone wanted it, so I gave it to them.
Yeah.
Well, hey, at least you helped them get to the next town.
I forgot
Hopefully.
about that, though, yeah.
Hopefully, I made it to Broken Arrow.
We talked to Wino when they played Downtown Lounge, and he was saying the same thing. You know, it's like, I mean, that dude's a legend, and they're just in a little van driving from town to town, making enough money to support their way.
Yeah.
Were you guys there the other night Corabi played there?
Yeah.
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 That guy's awesome.
Oh man,
That's
that
one
was
of my-
insane.
He
He's one of my all-time
He
favorites.
got like in the first verse of that song, and the first song I was like, that dude is the real deal, man.
Yeah.
He is and super nice. Hung out with, talked to everybody. And,
Yeah. Yeah, we get to meet him. Yeah, that's like one of that Motley Crue album he was on. That's like one of our favorite records
That was it,
of all
man.
time ever. That's Motley Crue.
That was
You know,
Motley Crue to me, man.
Yeah.
Yeah, that changed the game for
That's
me
right.
too.
Were you at that Mohawk show?
Yeah, I was. I was like, dude, Corabi was like standing like from me to that stove, and I was like, we were all like, hey. He was just standing there drinking a beer, you know, and act like we were even there. I was like, you little motherfucker. And then, and then they get on stage, and you remember all hell breaks loose.
Yeah. People, they're passing the chair.
Yeah, Tommy's like, well, just break the fucking chair wall down, and they break it down for real, and they come running on stage.
A buddy of ours still has the chair.
Yeah.
Really?
Or was he just walked out with the chair and
Yeah.
Man, we were
for a
right.
souvenir, I guess.
We were right there in front of the speakers, like just to the right of the stage.
Wow.
And dude, they had to be the TU football team because they had the jerseys on and stuff. But dude, these guys were monsters, and they're just like wading through people like they were trying to get to the front of the stage, and they're just like knocking fools down. I was like, I saw them coming. We were all ducking down, and but they come up there and was like managing the people that were running up on the stage. But that was insane. Typo Negative played in King's X.
Yeah.
That was,
dude.
That was
Yeah.
an amazing show.
I love King's X.
That was like three
Just-
amazing fucking bands. Oh my god.
3 bands completely different from each other, but it was just amazing.
Well, I heard one of your podcasts recently. There was quite a controversy about Typo Negative on one of them, wasn't it?
That was the Forever in Disgust.
Yeah.
Because like we had like both bands were there, and so it was like 8 guys or something, and half of them liked Typo Negative, the other half hated him, so they started. Oh yeah,
Is they arguing over it?
yeah, it was awesome. They
That's
were
awesome.
making fun of Peter Steele and all kinds of stuff. It was great. But I'm a huge Typo Negative fan. But
Man.
anyways,
Yeah, me too.
That's cool.
I love them. They're a good band.
but yeah, I mean, yeah, that's awesome. There's a ton of good shows back in the day.
Man, that shit don't happen no more.
No, it doesn't.
No.
It doesn't. And that that's why we talked about this earlier. Like just the show the other night, the Trivium show, that felt like one of those shows from like when we were a kid.
Mm-hmm.
Because like I told him, it was sold out Saturday night. There's a lot of people that I recognized.
It was
there.
an event, man.
It was exactly. And what I thought was really cool was it wasn't Trivia and a bunch of other. It was like locals.
Yeah.
And that was just that had a vibe to it for sure.
Hey, you guys had Enslaved by Fear in here?
No, yeah.
Man, those
I
guys,
talked to Brax
You
about
talked to
it a while
Brax.
back.
They killed it the other night, man.
Yeah.
He's a
Doing
friend
good
of
stuff,
ours.
man.
Yeah.
I'm proud of Brax and his crew, man. We've seen them come a long way from when they first kind of came on, and they were at that Rocklahoma with us that year, and he's
Yeah, I
doing
saw
good
they're
stuff,
doing like
man.
full on swings around the West Coast and the East Coast. And
Yeah, man,
He's
they just-
really
they're
he's
working
doing
their
good,
asses
man.
off.
I'm happy for those guys.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
I
don't
need to get
think
them on here.
I don't think we got there. I think we got there during Less Than Human.
Yeah, we didn't see them.
Yeah.
Yeah, they opened.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, well, Machine Open.
Okay. Well,
Machine
yeah,
in
we
the
missed the
Mountain.
Machine in the Mountain
Yeah.
and Enslaved by Fear.
Yeah. They were another good band, another good local band. Unique, dual guitar.
Yeah.
Kind of you got the cool all the chord changes they do and the Iron Maiden dual leads and all that. It's cool, man. I like what those guys do.
Right on.
Well, did you see any other Anything else in LA in the late 80s of note or anything badass?
Man, here's the reality. It was like toast and chicken noodle soup every day, and you're like, you know, it's a the struggle was real, as they say. The cool thing though was that I can remember going down and going like hanging outside the Grisarios or the Roxy or something, and you'd see, you know, bands you grew up listening to, Faster P-Cat and the Bullet Boys and bands like that were just hanging out, man. Just like we hang out at the Shrine.
Yeah.
You know, everybody's sitting out on the patio. Yeah. Same thing.
Wow.
And, you know, kid from Little Rock, Arkansas, that was pretty damn cool. Yeah. And I think it's kind of stuck with me. And why, like, even today, like in Tulsa, we try to be pretty supportive of all the bands in town. Even, you know what, maybe what you're doing is not my thing, but I'm going to respect you and I'm going to support that you're doing your thing. And I just, that whole sense of community and kind of like supporting each other is important to me. And I think that's something I really wish we could really continue to move forward on.
Yeah. Yeah, it's important for sure.
Well, I mean, ultimately it's about what we create, you know, and that's one element that we have a little influence on. Yeah. So
right on. Well, cool.
You got anything else? Or?
I think we covered it all. We covered a little bit more, so
yeah.
That's awesome.
Well, hey man, thanks for having us.
Yeah, thanks for doing this.
Yeah, thank you
awesome.
for having us.
And we will we'll be looking for you guys.
I'll even leave the searching for sanity comment in. So
Hey man, we love those guys. It's all good. No, they're good dudes, man.
There you go, Del and CJ from Grind. Great talk. Great hearing about these guys' backstories and what they're doing now and what they're looking forward to doing. You know, it's great to just get into some random music talk there towards the end about, you know, some of the stuff we grew up loving and some of the concerts we've seen. You know, we saw a lot of the same ones as Del, and CJ obviously had some of those different experiences out in California.
Yeah, it was super fun, and those are it's a favorite parts is just to get to talk about random bands and music that, you know, you dug growing up. That's where you connect, so it was really cool.
Yeah, search these guys up on Facebook. Just type in Grind, and if it doesn't come up, I know it's We Are the Grind, I think is the full website address. And you can also find them, like I said earlier, on Reverb Nation. Hit them up on Facebook. Find out when they're playing. They're playing here in Tulsa this coming April. And in the meantime, they're looking at booking some shows out of town like they talked about. So this is definitely a band that I think is well on their way because they've got a great sound that isn't as common, you know, in this day and age, and I think it's great. So
yeah, and they've got a good strategy, I think.
Yeah. So we hope to hear more from them, and I assume we hope to have them back again someday as well because, like we talked about, great dudes, easy to talk to.
Oh yeah, definitely. Just to talk about random, you know, band and music shit.
Yep. Once again, thethunderunderground.com. Find all our previous podcasts. Find some reviews. Jason just did a review for this past week for Megadeth, the new album Dystopia. And we've got tons of other reviews from other albums and other bands from around the area. Once again, we appreciate you listening. We appreciate you sharing this with all your friends. And until next time.